Hello everyone, it's me Clayton. I just finished watching episode 4 of the second season of Invincible. Unfortunately, this is going to be the last episode of Invincible that we're going to get this year, as we have to wait until 2024 for the second half of the season. But this episode certainly works very well as a mid-season finale, so to speak. So, basically what happens is that Invincible finds out that Omni-Man has he hasn't conquered the Thraxans. He's actually decided to protect them after he saved an entire ship full of them. Basically, after he beat up Mark at the end of the first season, he just drifted around in space with no real direction. And ultimately, saving the Thraxans made him feel like he had a purpose again. And he also had a kid with a Thraxan named Andressa, and ultimately, that kid is Mark's new brother. Mark naturally can't seem to take a lot of this, and he doesn't really know if he can trust Omni-Man at all, especially considering what happened last season. But he doesn't have much time to train to help out Omni-Man in peak condition, considering that the Viltrumites found out that Omni-Man left his post, and therefore they're out to get him. So several Viltrumite soldiers show up, some of them voiced by Phil Lamar and Gray Griffin, among others, as Adam Eve has to take on Kill Cannon while he attempts to steal something that belongs to Robot, and while Debbie decides that she's done taking money from Cecil because she no longer wants to be associated with him, or basically anyone who Omni-Man used to be associated with. Though Art, played once again by Mark Hamill, does remind her that since she raised Mark the correct way, she's ultimately kind of the one who ended up saving the planet, even in a way that was unintentional, because she's the one who influenced Mark to respect humanity, to love humanity, and to not to be a maniac and a killer like Omni-Man. That's actually a pretty mature way to think about it, considering that motherhood usually isn't looked over very very thoroughly in a lot of these superhero stories. But Invincible has a lot of heavy themes to go along with its violent action scenes, so naturally that's displayed pretty well here. But speaking of violent action scenes, there's tons of those in this episode, as Mark and Nolan have to work together to take on a bunch of Viltrumite soldiers. There's guts that are torn out, there's jaws that are broken. There's even this one Viltrumite soldier who has a knife in her hair that she uses to stab Mark at one point. It's possibly some of the most brutal violence we've seen on the show since the end of season 1. And I'm including the part of the season with the Mauler twins. Speaking of which, the Maulers have a few funny scenes in this episode, with the deformed one basically saying that he's now the new original, so he always knows who's the clone. But that also has a pretty funny payoff at the end of the episode, too. With Adam Eve almost causing a couple in a car to fall into the under a bridge, that does make me think that maybe she was trying to blow off steam and didn't take the fight as seriously as she should have. So hopefully this is a wake up call for her as well. But as if there weren't enough interesting concepts and cool scenes thrown in this episode, General Cragg, played by Clancy Brown, shows up, and he basically says that while Omni-Man is to be executed, Mark's going to take over his mission. So he can either kill a few humans on Earth and prove his dedication to the Viltrumite cause, since he's proven worthy of them at this point, or if Mark fails to do that, the Viltrumites are going to kill millions and then him while they're at it for, not submitting to their rule. So Mark's going to have a lot of new anxieties when it comes to him returning to Earth. Is he going to actually follow through with this idea? Is he going to actually start killing people? Or is he going to stick to his morals? That'll be an interesting question to think about when we get to the second half of the season. And overall, while the first half of the season has been more introspective and slower paced, I do think it sets up the second half very well, especially with this episode. And if General Cragg ends up reappearing again, I wonder if some of the other Viltrumites from the comics will appear too. But we'll see when that second half happens, so see you till then.